Okay, somebody's giving you an NDA. What do you look for? What's important to check out here? Here's the things you're gonna wanna look for before you sign or review an NDA. Number one, the definition of confidential information, because this is what's gonna define what is and is not considered protected under this thing. But more important than that, you wanna see the specifics. Like, do you have to mark information as confidential information? What about oral information? Let's say you give a presentation or you go have lunch, dinner, drinks, and you talk about business. Is that protected? You wanna find out the specifics in your definition of confidential information section to know what you do and do not get to have rights and obligations to. The second thing is, what's the scope of the project or the reason, the purpose that is listed on the NDA? Why this is important is why when you're sharing information with the other side, this is what they get to use it for. And if you're the one receiving information, it's what you're allowed to use that information for. You don't get to use it for anything and everything. There's a reason and a purpose, so most NDAs will list that. So check that out and make sure it says what you need it to say and isn't too broad nor too narrow. You can't get done what you need to get done. The next thing to look for is scope of who can have access to the confidential information. When we're doing business with a company, that could mean their executives, their board of directors, their freelancers, their employees. There's a lot of people involved in a company. So find out the list. It might be representatives or agents or something like that, but you want to know who's in that scope because you want to know how far your information might be going here, and that's really important for you to know. The next important thing to know and review when you're looking at an NDA is what are your obligations, right? You're promising to do something or not do something here, and hopefully the other side is as well. Know what those are because you don't want to accidentally breach for something you're like, oh crud, I didn't read that. I didn't know that was in there. Little things of just knowing what the obligations are can really, really be helpful. Another big obligation to look at is, well, what's the term? How long does this thing last? How long are you responsible for? Are you responsible for a year or a decade? And what happens when the term is over, right? That sometimes when the NDA is over, each party has an affirmative obligation that they have to do. It usually requires returning the information or destroying information. And failure to do that might accidentally put you in breach. So know that just because the NDA is signed, you still have responsibilities at the end of it as well. You're gonna wanna know what they are, and you're gonna wanna know what the other party is responsible for doing for you. Then the next areas you're gonna wanna look at are the time and money saver sections. These are things like your choice of law and venue. If you were based in California, do you wanna have to go all the way to Florida to do a case? Oh, you want it where you are. You also wanna make sure your state laws are the ones you have to be compliant with. Because if your NDA says it is dictated by Florida law, then guess what? You now have to comply with Florida law for everything under this NDA, even though you're based in California. So knowing those types of things throughout your document are what you're going to want to look for. The definition of confidential information, what your obligations are, and where the time and money savers are to make sure that you're getting the maximum out of that. Because just because it's there doesn't mean it's actually going to save you time and money. So make sure it's aligned to your business needs and your business purpose, and then you will have a great NDA in place.